Welcome to another banging episode of the Info Hazard Podcast Show. I'm David, here with my co-hosts Phil and Dan.
Hello, fellow domestic terrorists.
Oh gosh.
It's just like CPAC, dude. We are all domestic terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a banging episode this week. 3 bangs, to be precise, as an ICE officer shot and killed a protester in Minnesota this week.
Yep, it was straight up murder. Of the officer is Jonathan Ross. Her last words to him: "That's all right, dude. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you." His last words to her: "Fucking bitch. You shot her 3 times in the head as she was driving away." It is just a murder. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well,
See, you say that, and yet,
yeah.
here we are. A significant portion of the country watches that video and sees something completely different than you.
You know,
Yeah.
I watch it and I don't think that, like I think it's worth, taking time before deciding, clearly murder. Well, I'd say, clearly excessive force and, in many aspects. And, yeah, I mean, as to, whether it's murder and what degree, I would think that should be decided in court. Sure hope it gets to go to court. I'm sure that the federal government is all over prosecuting it, right, guys?
Well, they took the investigation away from the local authorities, so in one sense, they're all over it.
J.D. Vance, vice president, gave it a statement on the murder that that Jonathan Ross has absolute immunity in this case. So he's just kind of given the go-ahead for ICE officers to murder civilians. And yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. We're encouraging ICE to shoot protesters. I don't see how you would take that any other way. A guy shoots a protester in the head, and then the president, vice president, they say you have absolute immunity. Even if you're prosecuted, we'll pardon you. Let's talk about the protests that have come up after the fact. People have been marching and doing vigils for Renee Good all over the country. Have you seen any in your area? I saw some people on the overpasses holding up signs driving into the city.
I haven't been out this weekend.
In Sacramento, they had an unconventional way of celebrating the vigil.
Mm.
Did you see this? The ICE agent that was stomping all over the candles?
Yeah, I did see that. The ICE showed up to one of the vigils and vandalized the candles and tried to provoke the people there.
Our tax dollars at work.
Mm-hmm. That's what we pay the big bucks for. That $50,000 sign-up bonus is getting only the finest.
Being a police officer is hard, and sometimes the situation can be dangerous and ambiguous. Phil, you had pulled this document from the Department of Homeland Security with guidelines on how they're supposed to deal with people in cars. I thought these were kind of interesting. One quote from that I read in that document was that DHS LEOs, or I think that's law enforcement officers, should avoid intentionally and unreasonably placing themselves in positions in which they have no alternative to using deadly force. And I think it's interesting. So, for people who watch that video and say, he was in front of her car and she was moving forward-ish, and so he might have felt afraid for his life. I'd say, he walked right in front of this car and was pulling out his gun. It makes no sense to put yourself in that situation if your approach is to de-escalate, which it should be.
Plus, if he's in so much danger because he's in front of the car, after he shoots her, her dead body slams on the accelerator, and so it accelerates forward as hard as possible. And so if he was truly in danger from the car, then why wouldn't that have killed him if he was in so much danger?
Yeah, it turns out she was turning away from Jonathan Ross, the murderer, and was apparently trying to avoid him as he walked in front of the car. He was clear of the car, standing to the side of the car when he fired his gun. He fired and then fired 2 times to ensure that she was dead.
Yeah, firing right at her head, very near point blank. Yeah. It's interesting, these, I feel like that's how I see it too. That's what it seemed like to me, but I see some room for ambiguity in some of what I saw, in some of it, but no such ambiguity was in the minds of our nation's leaders as they discussed it. Do we have any of the quotes from them?
We had the absolute immunity quote, which really tells you
Yeah.
everything you need to know. But yeah, they called her a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, Trump said that she was a paid agitator, which is a favorite of right-wing politicians. They like to imagine a fantasy world in which any sort of dissent leveled at them, which is the majority of the population, because people hate these people. Most people hate these politicians because they're fascist pigs, and who doesn't hate them? Fascists, as it turns out. They like to imagine them as paid dissenters. They like to live in a fantasy world where the only people who would deign to deny their greatness are people who are paid to do so.
Yeah, I remember. So J.D. Vance was saying if their protesters are out there throwing bricks, I want to know who paid for that brick. Gotta follow the money.
Does he think that the bricks, like they bring the bricks with him? Like when they come to the protest, they're all just lugging a giant sack of bricks?
Right. Well, they stopped by George Soros's field brick office, and I mean, there were other quotes. I wish we had brought some of these up, but it was either Kristi Noem, Trump, or J.D. Vance. Basically said that the officer was being dragged by this car, that he was run over and dragged by this car.
Jonathan Ross had his phone out and his gun out and was taking a video of the incident, and they posted his video of the incident. And in the video that he took, he clearly wasn't being dragged. He was clear of the vehicle when he got bumped and his phone got jostled. So
right, that was
at no
interesting.
point was
I mean,
he
did he even get bumped? Like, I feel like it seemed to me like he's holding his phone and he kind of pushed off the car, and it's the phone camera goes like crazy. It's because he's moving his hand. I don't know,
And shooting somebody at the same time.
From his perspective, it's just full Lord of the Rings combat scene shaky cam. You can't tell what's going on.
So, everyone out there protesting, keep it peaceful. I think that in situations like this, it's hard to deny the clear evidence of your eyes. The video is out there. I think it's plain to see that this officer, if not murder, at least excessive force and some very, very dubious actions leading up to the events.
So the not murder thing, they're not law enforcement officers because they're not enforcing laws. You know what I mean? They're just
right.
Well, not really though, because they're
they were there doing some immigration raid, right?
Well, sure, but they're not actually targeting illegal immigrants. They're targeting non-criminals, so they're not enforcing laws.
Of course, ICE, they are enforcing some laws. It's a huge, sprawling agency, and a lot of what they're doing is, with pretty dubious tactics and poor training, enforcing immigration laws, ignoring due process, using racial profiling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all these things. But it's not, they're not law enforcement.
They're using these techniques like racial profiling. To me, that means they're not actually going after the criminals. They're going after whoever they can get their hands on.
Right. So how do you feel about this argument that, if you are in this country illegally, then you are, in some sense, a criminal, right?
It's a civil violation, though, like a speeding ticket.
So is speeding a crime?
It's like a misdemeanor or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the distinction is, but it's not a criminal violation to be an illegal immigrant. It's a civil violation. The criminal code and the civil code are different things.
But you're in violation of the law.
If I arrest a baby for crypto fraud, there could be a law on the books for crypto fraud, but I have absolutely no reason to arrest a baby for that. I'm not acting as a law enforcement officer by booking a baby for a crime. I'm just harassing some poor baby.
I mean, I don't think so. Do you think that that's ICE is so is the problem that they're picking people at random, or that their standard of probable cause is you're brown?
Yeah, I think that their
right.
standard is so eroded that they lose the designation of law enforcement.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to look at these numbers, which we had done not too long ago, of what percentage of the people that they are arresting are, in fact, in the country illegally, which I know you sort of said isn't a crime, but that is the main law that they are basically out there trying to enforce, right?
That
So it's like a violation of law, whether it's a crime
Their
or a misdemeanor or
theoretical
what.
job is to enforce that law, right? Their law enforcement. That's their theoretical job, but they're not acting under that mission.
Right. But so if there are tens of millions of people in violation of that law, and more than half of the people who they pick up are in violation of that law, then you don't think that like there's some, you don't think it's like it's going a little bit far to say they're just not law enforcement officers?
Yeah, I don't worry about my statement being extreme in this case. I think it's time. It's time for a view of ICE that is hostile. I think that is the logical response to what is happening here. I think we need to abolish this organization at a minimum. I would think that the Department of Homeland Security's got to go, but that's just me. Rotten to the core.
Yeah. Anyway, I just think, there's so much that you can criticize these guys on, like, and without having to like strain that, like saying that they're not law enforcement officers seems like, yeah, well, we went on a rabbit hole over that rather than talking about the things that we can like totally agree on, which like the things like that, yeah, he shot this woman 3 times and killed her, even though she like plainly was not like going to kill him, that he messed up and ICE agents were escalating this whole time, and that the administration is lying about it and trying to like prevent the prosecution, that there was a guy there saying, I'm a physician, can I check to see if she has a pulse, and he said no, all
He
those
said,
other
I don't
things.
care.
I didn't hear that. And yeah, so there's lots of stuff that you can say that's like right, and then yeah, and I guess we'll get into in your segment, we'll talk more about what does this mean for where our country's headed.
Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. We'll hash this out over and over again.
Yeah.
But let's, I guess, move on to some lighter news.
So in Iran, protesters getting shot.
Let's do the Peace Prize thing. It kind of is. There's a dark cloud around this story, but the story itself is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So Trump just kidnapped the president of Venezuela, the political rival of the Nobel Peace Prize winner for 2025, Maria Corina Machado. And she is understandably in favor of this because Nicolas Maduro banned her from running in the election, which he lost against her chosen successor to her in the campaign, and decided he was going to just stay in power, use the Supreme Court to stay in power. So she has an understandable grudge against Maduro, and she is happy about him leaving the country. So she offered her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump because he wanted it so bad. And
on Hannity.
On Hannity, doing a little
where
Fox
else would you
News
do
stuff.
that?
It's where all the power players play.
Yeah, they're in
Hannity.
Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, this is a prize of the Venezuelan people. Certainly want to give it to him and share it with him. Just like, what do you want, you fat orange dipshit? Take my Nobel Peace Prize. Anyway, unfortunately, though, the Nobel Institute says that it's not transferable. It cannot be revoked, shared, or transferred to others. The decision is final and stands for all time.
I mean, that's not going to stop Trump from accepting it, though, right? Like, it won't change the Wikipedia article about like Nobel Prize winners, but he will probably end up with the medal, right? They're going to meet, they're going to televise the transfer.
Yeah, she'll give him the little...
Maybe by the time this episode releases, who knows?
That's what makes the FIFA Peace Prize so superior, dude. Like, we all know that if Trump wanted to transfer it, they would let him transfer it, Nobel Peace Prize and untransferable. FIFA Peace Prize, transferable. Way better, dude.
I'm just impressed that he made it a year. He made it a year, not warmongering. Just like, I'm going to give this Nobel Peace Prize run a good shot. And when the year's over, invasions. I
mean, he did bomb Iran and Nigeria. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere else?
Yeah, but as the U.S. president,
Syria.
you get a few freebies, dude.
Yemen.
Obama bombed hella people, and he still got the Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Well, he hadn't bombed them yet. They were giving him the Nobel Peace Prize in honor of the bombings he was yet to do.
Oh my God, I don't know. Like, are they like when they're like voting on who to give the Nobel Peace Prize? Like, are they in on the joke? Like, are they like, this is just too ridiculous? Like, I can't believe we still call it this,
right? No. Well, I don't know why anyone cares about it anymore, to be honest. Once they gave it to Kissinger, it was a joke.
I think there's just not a bigger prize in the field. Like, it's a weird field. It's sort of like an anti-action piece.
The field of peace.
Like, you're not doing war, and so it's pretty subjective who is the best at not doing war.
I feel like we've all been like fairly peaceful, and so InfoHazard should probably win next year's Nobel Peace Prize.
Did you see we got shafted today? We didn't win the Golden Globe for Best Podcast. It was the first ever one in that category today. We didn't win.
Spurned.
Yeah. Shocking.
Not even nominated.
I know, dude.
Is this even a podcast? I don't know. What's a podcast?
Nobody knows
Yeah.
what a podcast is, dude.
We're on Spotify. This is a podcast.
Okay. There you go.
Pretty conclusive.
All right, back to shooting protesters.
But seriously, we have not even once bombed Syria. And to a U.S. president, that's like breathing air. They do it without trying. Let's talk a little bit more about our president's commitment to peace. Trump pulled out of 66 international bodies.
Is Melania
Ben-
one of them? Hey-oh!
I was going to say, it's better than getting them pregnant. Man, all 66.
Okay. Well, you got to it before me, but I was going to say the last time he pulled out of 66 international bodies, he was on Epstein's Island.
Oh my God. You have to be there for like a month or something. At least a couple weeks.
He's a rich man. He's got time. Anyway, so these are like international law organizations, agreements that the U.S. was in about sort of rule law between nations, war crimes, that sort of thing. And
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wonder why he would be feeling any of that sort of thing right now. Why would he be upset at international law?
one can only speculate. But, speculating is what we do. So I'll just say it's probably because he is kidnapping sovereign heads of state and plans to invade America's NATO ally of Greenland.
Yeah, I mean, he just generally hates laws and rules and basically hates everything. Hates smart things, hates cooperation.
On radioactive water.
He gave a statement this week in an interview. He was asked, "Do you think that you are subject to international law?"
This is the New York Times. He was saying he's just his own morality, right?
Yeah, it's just his own morality. He doesn't need international law.
Fuck. In other words, no limits. Yeah. Well,
Yes. Well, if we can't trust the morality of a prolific rapist, con man, murderer, like,
Liar.
I don't know who we can trust.
alleged.
Sure. I don't need to allege. Other people have done it for me.
But we do.
I'm just reporting. Yeah. So China thinks this is bad. The international bodies article, it was a South China Today article, and a Chinese diplomat warned of the law of the jungle if the U.S. exits global bodies, which I thought would be pretty cool if we return to monkey. Like, we withdraw from so many international bodies that we go back to caveman times.
At least Trump wouldn't be in charge, dude. Some
Yeah.
big angry guy would kill him in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, and Trump, I don't think we would be physically fit enough to survive a law of the jungle kind of situation.
No hamburgers in the jungle. So, speaking of lawlessness, this was I first heard about this a couple weeks ago. Some large frauds have been uncovered in the Minnesota social services around the COVID pandemic. This is a big deal on the right now because the people who did the fraud were Somalis, and so any chance to demonize a whole community for the actions of the worst among them is not to be missed. But there was some serious malfeasance here. So a nonprofit called Feeding Our Future exploited federal child nutrition funds during the pandemic, and they seem to have basically stolen more than $250 million, claiming that it was to provide nutritional benefits, and then they just, I guess, bought yachts, caviar for themselves. I hate this. I mean, I'm a big proponent of social safety net. And yeah, there's lots of fraud being committed against our social programs. I looked up an article from the Government Accountability Office. It was kind of interesting. Just sort of like summarized the big aggregates on fraud from COVID relief programs. Basically, as of the middle of last year, the Government Accountability Office estimated total fraud over $300 billion from the COVID relief programs, mostly unemployment.
The PPP loans, right?
Mostly from unemployment insurance, the PPP loans, and the COVID Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. I don't know exactly what that one is, but yeah.
But the breakdown between the three is not clear.
Yeah, I don't have that breakdown on me, but there are some interesting breakdowns in that document, including length of prison sentences. So let's see, there have been, as of the time of that article, which was July of 2025, there had been 2,500 criminal convictions. They had an 82% conviction rate. The majority of these convicts were sentenced between 1 and 5 years in prison. 73 of them were sentenced to between 10 and 30 years in prison. So hundreds of billions of dollars defrauded from our social safety programs, and lots of consequences dealt out. And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, keep your eyes open for how this fraud is being used to justify improper action by the federal government. I mean,
they're
just
cutting
today?
off food aid to the country, right? The Department of Agriculture is completely shut off funding to Minnesota.
Not to mention that, all these people, all these Republicans are super upset that these crimes that the Somali people did, and yet, Trump is pardoning people who stole $1.3 billion from Medicaid, as an example. Philip S. Formas, Trump commuted his 20-year sentence to time served.
Probably because he donated one of those $1 million to Trump in some way or another.
Probably. I mean, we can only speculate without evidence, but I certainly don't see any good reason to set him free.
Who was this? What's his name?
This guy, his name is Philip S. Formas. He was convicted of stealing $1.3 billion from Medicaid and Medicare. So significantly more than all of these Somalis put together, more than 4 times as much of the high-end estimate. And yet, Trump is pardoning this guy, and they're all foaming at the mouth that the scary black people.
In the abstract, I think this is an important story. Politicians love to sign bills, but there's so little attention paid to the implementation of programs. And in that gap, there is room for this kind of fraud. But I don't know, why are we feeding the fire on this? Does talking about this just give more credence to people who want to further crack down on the programs that we use and need?
Well, yeah, I mean, I looked into it because it was being spoken about, and I wanted to know the facts. It's a large fraud, our money being stolen. I'm outraged when Donald Trump steals our money, and I'm outraged when Somali immigrants do it, and I'm outraged when Mr. S. Formas does it, and when anyone does it. And so, trying to be even-handed. It's also being used to justify things unfairly, which is part of what I was talking about, which is maybe a bigger part of the story than the fraud itself, right? So, yeah, it's good to know the actual facts. So here we talked about the actual facts. Now, how's it being used to justify stuff? Kristi Noem says they're sending 100 more ICE agents to Minnesota because of fraud. Does ICE, you dispute whether ICE enforces any laws. I'd say if they enforce any laws, it's not fraud. They're not enforcing fraud laws.
I would put this down as evidence for my theory that ICE is not a law enforcement agency. They are in fact just a thug agency. They are there to, we'll talk about it more.
We'll get into it more. Yeah, Phil's chomping at the bit. Yeah, I'd say it's evidence that Kristi Noem can't speak without lying or wearing a hat. Yeah. Anyway,
hats.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's a big story. We want to run the country. We want a country that works better. In a country that works better, hundreds of billions of dollars wouldn't be getting defrauded from our social services. So, we don't need to hide from that.
An opportunity to outline a better way for our country.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remembered when the Congress was voting on some of these emergency bills, it was sort of known and expected at the time, these things are being rushed out.
And there will be fraud.
There will be fraud. And there was.
And that was just a known consequence at the time, but it was seen as necessary because the crisis was so dire, right?
Yeah.
And now that the fraud has come around, it's being used selectively as a political bludgeon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like over like 2,000 people have gone to prison for this, for various frauds, and lots of money is being recovered. Probably, I'm sure not all of it. This is a trade-off that these programs make inherently, and even more so in emergencies. So anyway.
Yep. All right. I think we've juiced this particular orange here.
Okay. Yeah. Let's
Delicious.
get back to our bread and butter: shooting protesters.
Oh God. Yeah, this one, yeah, poor Iran, man. Things are going bad, huh? There's like nationwide protests all over Iran, and when I wrote down this news item, there were 200 dead protesters. Last I checked, there were 500 dead protesters. That number will be different by the time this episode is posted, probably, as the crackdowns intensify and seemingly the protests intensify too. I mean, at a certain point, if the protests intensify enough, then they kind of beat the crackdown, right? Like eventually they just take the government, and then there's no more crackdown.
There have been so many of these nationwide protests over the years in Iran. You just can't wait for them to rid themselves of these guys and hope they get something better. The New York Times reported that Trump was looking at military options after threatening that the regime would pay hell if it killed protesters. And so, yeah, but
Can't
probably
do
by the time
anything
this
without
video,
irony, dude.
yeah,
He's killing protesters here in the U.S. and cautioning Iran not to kill protesters there. He values Iranian protesters' lives, but not American protesters, dude.
Right. We're all domestic terrorists. Anyway, so leave a comment if you've already been bombed. If you're in Tehran and the U.S. has bombed you again by the time this episode went live.
Have internet.
They don't have internet.
Okay. Well, yeah. Get out of the country if you can, and then get on the internet and then leave a comment.
First thing to do, last item, I saw that subpoenas have been served to the Fed. They're criminally investigating Chairman Jerome Powell for saying that he lied to Congress about something about they're renovating some building over there. So, yeah, trying to pressure the Fed to lower interest rates so that we can have more inflation but a booming stock market. So, thanks.
Yeah. Did you see why, though? Like what he lied to Congress about?
Or
They
what
had
they're
like
saying,
a
what they're saying he
renovation
lied.
of the Fed building.
Right.
They had a renovation of the Fed building, and it was going to cost however much, and then it went over budget a little bit. Like not like a crazy amount, like a small percentage of the total budget. It went over budget.
I mean, this is the first time a government project has gone over budget, dude. We got to get to the bottom
Or
of
a
it.
construction project, for that matter. Like, that's just what they do. They go over budget. This is going to get thrown out, right? Just like the other.
Well, it hasn't made it to like a it's still just investigating and subpoenas, so it hasn't gotten to like a
Grand jury
formal,
or anything.
yeah, hasn't made it to court yet. But yeah, if it does, then politically motivated prosecution defense seems readily available. Oh man, I forgot to add the item about how Trump requested $600 billion more dollars for the military budget this week. So there you go. Fiscal responsibility. Republicans at it again.
To all of you who voted for Trump because he'd lower the deficit.
Yep.
Shame
Don't
on
you
you.
feel
Shame
stupid?
on you for trusting a felon. Felonious con man. Just shame.
Like, not like a reformed felon either. Like there are like felons
Just
who
like
you can
an
trust.
active felon.
Just
Just
like,
like
right.
like the most sued person in history for a reason.
Well, it's been another banging, hot, toasty week of news. See you on our later episodes this week where we'll do deeper dives.
Yeah.
Bye.